These cryptos are ready for altcoin season. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil, always keeping technical analysis short and sweet, removing everything on Bitcoin. It is clearly in a bullish momentum, and it is most likely going to have that continuation. Putting everything back in, we can see what my rough analysis was, and we are in this consolidation period that I circled in blue. Keeping in mind this is the weekly. Moving into the daily, this is roughly where we are at right before we get this major pump, which I personally believe is going to be playing out. Moving over into, I'm going to do XYO on this one. I actually started this video specifically for XYO and Flare. Everything's in the weekly because I adjusted it once, and now everything's in the weekly. This is the 4 hour. For BNT, we were in that downward channel. We tested the top 3 times. We got that rejection, broke out of the channel for the bear trap, keeping that 200 EMA confused and nice and close. And I believe we're going to push back into this channel, up above that 200 EMA, into the top of this downward trend line, and then break it and go to 94 cents. Could I be wrong? Yes, I could be wrong. The 618 is here at 0.66 cents from the previous low. And I guess we could do an even lower low at our exact entry point, which is down here around 33 cents. 618 is actually down here around 55 cents, which would also be right around where it bottomed out previously. If Bitcoin pulls back, that's a possibility. If Bitcoin has its continuation in the bullish momentum, we'll most likely see this enter back into this channel and break out of it along with the rest of the altcoins. If Bitcoin does pull back or there's a flash crash or something ridiculous happens, we could see that pull back, but it's very highly unlikely that that is going to happen. Jumping over to XRP, I did bring it in on XCN. This is the weekly, and this is what we'd consider a bull flag on the weekly. So from the bottom to the top, about that 200%. When it breaks that downward trend line, that would be testing this previous Fibonacci. Oh, this is XPR, my bad, XPR. Previous Fibonacci would be at 0.012. If that does not hold, we would be testing this 200 EMA, which would also break this upward trend line, which could turn very bad for XPR, even though, I mean, everything is potentially bullish at this moment. XPR, it's debatable. XYO, all right, let's get into it. This is XYO. Looks very, very bottomed. This is a bottom here, and once we had that bottom, we had a major push. This is the new bottom from this previous one. So let's actually see what the Fibonacci, oh, it's right there. There's our Fibonacci. 618 is here at 0.05 cents. We are currently less than a penny. That is 5x your money and a very high possibility for us to hit that number. The first step we have to break is above 0.024. This 618 from the previous high is at 3 cents. Could we push from less than a penny to 3 cents, retest this 0.024 cent line, and then take off? Yes, if not almost indefinitely, that is most likely what is going to happen for XYO. As we see, the 200 EMA is right here, and we are getting a majority of the pressure from the bottom side, which is pushing this thing up, and eventually it's going to have to push over that 200 EMA right at 0.01 cents, and we will have all this range to play in. So it's risk versus reward, and your risk is very, very low at this entry point for XYO. If you have not entered, I know it's a very long consolidated thing. This is in the weekly, keeping that in mind. Every bar was a week. This is in the daily, and we've been consolidating since July. We've been consolidating since July. We still need to break that downward trend line and that 200 EMA to start seeing that upward momentum. But now is probably your best opportunity, as it is running out of steam, to push lower and lower. Moving real quick to DNT. Similar setup, same thing, broke a downward trend line, massive consolidation. This is on the weekly. Let's move into the daily. And the 200 EMA is very tight. We see that it did get a little bit of rejection pushed underneath this green upward trend line, which we are ideally trying to stay above. And we got a little bit of support. Keeping in mind this green trend line isn't like, if it breaks this, we're going to zero. No, it's not that. It's ideally what we'd want to see. What this is liquidity sweeps. And we've seen this in XRP before, where right before it had a major pump to like $2 or something from 50 cents, it hit a lower low, which is typical. We like to see it grab that liquidity from everybody who was trapped within that area, them get out at that point, and a bunch of buyers get in and push this thing up over the 200 EMA, where once it does get over that 200 EMA and this black downward trend line, we can see some substantial gains, as we have seen it clearly in the past. My previous prediction, can't talk, was 0.05 cents. We went to nearly 20 cents. So I was way off on the prediction. We did have that pullback here around 0.53, all the way down to 0.03. Major reduction just in this one area before the sky was the limit at 20 cents. And this is the all-time high at 25 cents. So if you are entering in at 2, definitely some major potential for that upward movement. And the last thing I want to add in for this one, we're going to sneak in, I'll add in a few more. I'll add an LCX on this for you polar ice bear dude. Got you covered. Quant, look at that wick off. That's beautiful. That shows that we are bottoming out. This black upward trend line is holding. It is still in this downward channel, but it just needs to break this downward trend line and this one to start seeing that previous high that we had around 161. I know that was a while ago, before that major retracement. A lot of shakeout happening here around $90, and then a lot of people selling off and buyers getting trapped here at 124 to 128, which had that major pullback. But we are holding that upward trend line. This major wick off, this one black line right here, is very important to see that we are getting more buyers than we are getting sellers, and the upward momentum is about to start as this thing is consolidated to the max. This is on the weekly. When we move on to the daily, it looks definitely different, because these 3 days is part of the week, and that major push down scared a bunch of people to sell off, and then a major bullish engulfing. And this bullish engulfing on the daily, when this closes, clearly states that this is going to start pushing upwards, which is also breaking that 200 EMA. And once it passes the CM Guppy, this downward trend line is the next resistance. This yellow downward trend line, right where a lot of people are trapped at 123, is the next resistance, where you're going to see a lot of sell-off, because the people who didn't sell off here are going to want to get out of QNT. And at that moment, that is probably when we are going to see it take off for all those who are holding. Compound, consolidated. I'm going to burn my dinner. Consolidation, $41. Let's move. Oh, the rice is ruined. Well, that's what I get. So consolidation for compound, with the black upward trend line. It is underneath that currently, but that's nothing to be worried about, as ultimately we are just waiting for this one to also get over that 200 EMA as we have been planning. Downward wedge, obviously, which we have laid out here. This upward black trend line is ideally what we want to be holding above. This one is more irrelevant, but it's a good reminder to see where we want to keep these higher lows at. Compound, as well as XYO and DNT in consolidation. If you are not in, now is your opportunity to buy in the cheap. And let's throw in, what do I say? I'll do Jasmy and LCX. Ooh, Jasmy wedged. similar to what we were just looking at. We see it's building higher lows. We see the 200 EMA is above it, showing that this is fairly bearish. But with Bitcoin starting to push up, Jasmine does have some major potential to start hitting some highs. I believe 4 to almost 6 cents roughly was the previous high, which is about 5x. But beyond that, this is what's a little concerning, is we had the 36 cents as the previous high, had that major pump, dump, crashed since 2022, never retraced back to its previous high, which is the main concerning thing with Jasmine. If you are entering this, definitely don't put a whole bag into it. Don't think it's going to be a moon shot, money shot, whatever you want to call it. But the 200 EMA is essentially what it needs to get over. LCX for the finale, consolidation. This downward trend line, which we broke but did not hold above, isn't necessarily the most important thing, but what we wanted to see is it push up above, test this as support, and then have that continuation. As it did not hold that as support and push back underneath that trend line, it is flirting with the 200 EMA right here. And if it gets above that downward trend line, which tomorrow it obviously has to, it could have some upward momentum, but then we would be readjusting our trend line to look something like this, and that would be our next resistance. Why do I say that? Is because if we do a Gone fan, which kind of deals with the trend lines that we see maybe I was working within this wedge. We see this blue line here is the trend line that we were previously looking at. It broke over that and came back down, is trying to push down into this area, which means it would have a long way to drop. But if it can hold, we get this range to deal with. And if that breaks, this is where the next resistance is, because we see that with these wick offs here. And then beyond that, it's very tight, getting tighter. And then once we get over this 0.17 cents, LCX does have some major momentum to start pushing to the upside. I was stating I would be buying at 15 cents. Currently out of money. If you guys want to donate to me or send me crypto, gladly appreciate any money you want to send my way, or 10% of anything that you earn. everything accepted. But the Gaussian fan's very beneficial to do what I do. The trading strategy I use doesn't necessarily use this. It just uses the lines and structure that I place for downward trend lines. When we get over these trend lines, that's when we start seeing some movement. 618 is at 28 cents. Double money can happen very quickly. And actually, lastly, I wanted to bring in is Flare. Flare is the one that I'm recommending at the moment, highly over everything else that I have said. If you were trying to enter into those other coins, you're going to have some time, but they will move very quickly if you don't get in. Flare is looking more bullish than all those other ones, as the previous area we needed to break was 0.026, and we broke that. If we close on this daily, this is where we might see a retest off that to see it for support, which could be a quick wick. Like this is considered a wick where it has that push, rejection. We could see a push, support, and then that continuation for the 52% or beyond for Flare Network. And if you're using Flare and you have XRP, you can stake both of those on Flare Network in the future and earn passive income in Flare token. Everything is looking very bullish. We got that massive green candle. We have somewhat what I had placed here, inverse head and shoulders. Could we retrace to the 0.023? That is possible, but ultimately it's going to be holding support. The CM Guppy is very strong, and we will see it hold above this 0.026 in the very near future. And Flare would be my go-to if you're looking for a daily entry, but none of this is financial advice. Keeping that in mind, don't just be like, Neil said, buy this coin, I'm going to do it. They said buy Cavardin. 20 people said Elon Musk was going to invest in it, and so did Donald Trump and God. So I bought it. Yeah, don't do that. This is just my opinion. I tend to be right from what I have shown in this previous history from my strategy. And as you see, we are wicking off, which means we are going to get a little bit of a pullback, potentially underneath that 0.025. CM Guppy 50 is around here at 0.02503. But the volume is picking up exponentially. Floor, flare, network. All references are in the description below if you want to trade things on MEXC that has the lowest trading fee platforms. That reference link will give you 10 USDT free. And like and subscribe. If you haven't liked and subscribed, I know who you are. There's hundreds of you. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.